Hello everybody, my name is Fred Herman and welcome to another episode of Fingerstyle Favorites. And tonight's episode takes us back to late 2013, early 2014. So let me quickly recap and see what was going on in my life during that period. As you can see from the videos, that was an awesome time. I had so many adventures. But the helicopters and the diving and all of that wasn't the only adventure I would go on to. It was also an adventure in a musical sense, because on some idle Tuesday I was sitting at home, I was back from my project and I had nothing to do and I was just watching YouTube videos, and I actually turned the volume on the computer down because I was just bored. And I looked up at the screen and I saw this blonde guy playing this grand auditorium, and just out of the blue I decided to put the volume up again. And it was just in time for me to hear this wide open strum filled with this little hammer on and pull off technique with this explosive little fill, and then this harmonic that just came from nowhere and rang out so exquisitely. I'm like, oh, who's this? And it was like a deja vu moment for me. It was like my mother had dragged me by the scruff when I was 12 years old, took me to the record booth at the library and said, listen to this Windham Hill album, and I was introduced to Michael Hedges. So it was sort of the musical equivalent of the prodigal son coming home. It was like a nostalgia that was awakened. I immediately Googled, I'm like, who's this young guy that's writing this profound music? And I quickly went and bought and downloaded Phoenix Rising, the album. And that's how my love affair with Calum's music started, basically just through a random YouTube video in this one little moment. Across the next few weeks, of course, I listened to Phoenix Rising ad nauseum. I basically imprinted the album into my brain. I could hear every finer little nuance, and I sort of could count the sections in. I knew how many bars there were. I just really acquainted myself to an obsessive level with the album. But one moment stands out. I went shopping, and on my way home I was listening to Three-Way Street. And in the song it has this little triplet descending line, this da 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 da, and it sort of repeats 3 times. And I just got lost in that moment that I actually literally forgot to take my off-ramp to go home. And I just carried on driving north, and I was so on autopilot listening to this music that like a 30-minute trip, what should have been a 30-minute trip to the shops, turned out to be this 2-hour road trip almost into another province. But it was awesome. It was an unbelievable experience for me. It's just, I hadn't heard anything that had inspired me so much in a very, very long time. So work called and I had to go back onto the project. But by that stage, things had slowed down quite remarkably, and I had a lot more time on my hands while I was up there. And again, I saw a YouTube notification that Calum had sort of published a new video about how to play Three-Way Street. Can you imagine my delight? So I quickly went and bought the tab, and I had this Yamaha silent guitar with me on the project. You know, those things that look like a fancy coat hanger. It didn't have a body, and it was very, very soft. I think they produced like 10% the normal sound of an acoustic guitar. It had these gross, rusty old strings on as well, but it didn't matter. I had the sheet music, I had a guitar, and I had Calum on the screen teaching me how to play the song Even though the internet signal was crappy and drove me to dementia, I eventually, after a few weeks, got the song right. And I realized that I can do this. And that's the beauty about Calum's music. For many of the songs, they are technically attainable. When you exploring the new tunings and you seeing Calum's way of navigating them, it was always to me like putting together the most amazing puzzle. And I have this huge appreciation for Calum's music because unlike many of the players on the Candy Rat label, and I mean no disrespect there because I enjoy that, but there are a lot of players that have this great technique. It's percussively heavy, but it's sort of soulless sometimes. It's more the technique and the ability that shows rather than this wholesome and heartfelt songwriting. And that is where Calum's music truly stands out. The melody always speaks first, and it speaks loudly, and then the harmony follows. And let's just be honest, if you love Calum's music, you know exactly what I'm talking about because his melodies are second to none. Across the next few years, I started learning more of Calum's songs. I think the next one I chewed off was Waiting. Then it was Phoenix Rising, and Tabula Rasa by that stage had come out. And I just got obsessed with learning Calum Graham songs, and sort of the 10,000 hour rule started sinking into my brain. And when I had the time on my days off, it was like 18 hours, sort of kind of obsessive. But I also befriended Calum on Facebook, and occasionally Calum would click like on something and I'd be like, oh my God, this is so awesome. And then fast forward to 2018. My friend Thomas had his acoustic boot camp, and he informed me that Calum was going to be a teacher/instructor at this particular boot camp. So I said to my fiance at the time, I'm like, I'm doing this. Cheers, I'm going to Austria. She looked at me, she smiled, she sort of understands my passion for this. And I flew off to Austria for the boot camp, and there were many amazing instructors there and players as well. It was just a remarkable experience all around. But I remember just before I met Thomas, before I picked him up at the airport here in Johannesburg, and he said to me, he says, yeah, so how do you feel about meeting me? I'm like, what are you talking about? I can't wait. We've been chatting on social media for so long. I'm going to love you. And he says, yeah, well, just stand back and just, don't place too many expectations in terms of meeting your heroes because you might not like them. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're awesome. And meeting Thomas was exactly like that. It was just, he's just this incredible, insanely beautiful person. But before, Calum hadn't arrived by the time I was there. He came 1 or 2 days later. But Thomas's words were just kind of replaying themselves in the back of my mind. I'm like, what happens if I don't like Calum? And this sort of caused me quite a bit of angst. So Calum eventually arrived, and it was quite apparent that he was tired and quite jet-lagged. But in the first 10 minutes when you meet Calum, you get a sense of this individual. He is ridiculously calm, and has this kind of very quiet confidence about him, and this focus that is actually quite disarming. And it was so nice for me to meet the person that wrote these songs that inspired me so much, and to make the realization that he too was an awesome, awesome human individual. Calum is a great guy. And I'm privileged enough to say that we've become friends, although I'm sad that I didn't get to see him when I was in Canada. So Calum, if you're watching this, terribly sorry, mate. It was my honeymoon, it was my wedding. It was just insanely crazy during that period. But we're still going to get you down to South Africa when the economy has sort of revived itself. But for now, we're just going to have to listen to your music, and you're going to have to love your fans. But anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. And also, do me a favor, I'm going to leave a link about where you can buy Calum's music or the tab. And if you haven't heard of him before, please, guys, listen to the music. Be good, be kind, be safe. And thanks for watching. This is Fred signing off. Cheers.